Hello and welcome to Domestic Horror, Nightmares of Suburban and Domestic Life. Horror as a genre often uses children as a prop rather than as an active participant in a storyline, as they are frequently used as a tool to provoke the audience. These films utilize their innocence and vulnerability to heighten the suspense and anxieties experienced by the viewer. They get away with this because many of us do in fact see children as previously described, innocent, vulnerable, the most reliant members of society, that we are biologically wired to protect, even at the expense of our own comfort and safety. But this is not true for all of us. For many, the idea of being responsible for the care of a child is their greatest fear. Domestic horror highlights these anxieties as well as the dangerous repercussions of the societal pressure to conform to suburban and domestic life. Semiotic analysis was the obvious choice for this genre analysis as it uses signs and symbols to uncover hidden themes within a text. I evaluated language, color, symbols, settings, sounds, and more to determine just what classifies a film as a domestic horror. I chose 3 films to analyze: Vivarium 2017, We Need to Talk About Kevin 2011, and Eraserhead from 1977. Vivarium follows a couple who are house hunting and end up in a newly constructed suburban nightmare. The couple find themselves trapped in a labyrinth of Yonder. Unable to return to their previous lives, here they are forced to raise a child left on their doorstep as they attempt to cope with the imprisonment of suburbia and their unwanted and monstrous child. We Need to Talk About Kevin follows the life of a once free-spirited mother, Eve, who less than enthusiastically agrees to have a baby with her husband. From the start of her pregnancy, Eve becomes a prisoner to her child, constantly tortured by the psychological warfare her son, Kevin, continuously inflicts upon her. Eraserhead tells the story of a man named Henry who unexpectedly becomes a father when his old fling gives birth to a deformed creature. Forced into marriage, Henry and Mary struggle to care for their less-than-human child and its constant needs. First, let's discuss the more obvious similarities of all 3 films. Their primary setting is within the home. Both Eve from We Need to Talk About Kevin as well as Gemma and Tom from Vivarium have found themselves forced into a suburban neighborhood. Eve protesting the family's move, stating she preferred city life, but her husband ultimately pushed the family to suburbia, disregarding her wishes. And as discussed, Tom and Gemma being forced into Yonder. Next, we have color theory. Color theory has proven to be an important aspect of domestic horror, as all 3 films use color to communicate important themes and messages to their viewers. In Vivarium, the primary used color in the set of the film is a dusty mint color. The director stated he used this color to portray a slightly institutional sort of feel, and that it had a kind of toxic and poisonous quality. He also noted the color was psychologically tied to the feelings of anxiety, mirroring the emotions of the characters. Similarly, red is used as the primary color in We Need to Talk About Kevin, as it portrays the violence and angers that is seen within the characters' minds. Specifically, splatters of red are displayed continuously to foreshadow the bloody and horrific crimes of Eve's son, Kevin. In Eraserhead, the entire movie is filmed in black and white cinematography. This is done to add a tone of despair that could be felt by the audience to portray Henry's feelings of imprisonment to his child. Now, let's discuss a few themes. I have determined a few major themes of this genre that are present in all 3 films. This is that of imprisonment and loneliness. All of the protagonists experience isolation at the fault of their parental status. In Vivarium, Tom and Gemma are literally forced into isolation in order to be surrogate parents to an unhuman child. And We Need to Talk About Kevin, we are continuously shown glimpses of Eve's life before she had children, carefree and adventurous. These memories constantly interrupted by the realities of her current life, a prisoner to her association to her son, and previously imprisoned by Kevin himself. In Eraserhead, we go back and forth between what appears to be a dream world and reality. The movie begins with Henry floating in what can be interpreted as outer space, symbolizing his feeling of loneliness. Mary rejecting his advances and even leaving him and the baby, put Henry in an even more isolating state of mind. While Henry is attempting to cope with his new status as a father, he is once again rejected by the neighbor, causing him to force blame onto his child. The next major theme is that of traditional family values. In Eraserhead, Mary's mother forces the couple to get married soon after confirming that Henry did in fact have sex with Mary, concluding to her that he was the father of the child. The couple then moves in together unhappily as Mary initially assumes the role of the primary caregiver for their baby. It's not until Mary can no longer withstand her new life and leaves that Henry takes over the care of the child. And we need to talk about Kevin. Eve, who was once a free-spirited traveler, writer, and author, agreed to have a child with her husband Franklin as she thought it would be another adventure. But as motherhood proved foreign and contradicting to her personality, her husband only continued to disregard and oppress her emotions into the role of a stay-at-home mother, regardless. Finally, in Vivarium, Gemma slips into the role of a mother for the child, feeding, reading, and looking after him, while Tom buries himself into his work and eventually overworks himself to death. Another theme presented to this genre is that of reflection. Our protagonists do not want the children that they have been forced to care for, whether voluntarily or involuntarily, but this puts them in a mutually parasitic relationship with the child regardless. Mirrors, water, photography, and other symbols supports the theory that what makes these children monsters is the parents themselves. In an attempt to feel absolved of their resentment and disdain for their children, these characters have already decided that the children were unhuman, not realizing that their cold and distant behaviors towards the child was the very cause of this child's form. Domestic horror uses suburban imagery, color theory, larger themes of reflection, imprisonment, loneliness, and traditional family values to showcase the anxieties surrounding parenthoods that many viewers can relate to. It is the horror that comes from inside the home. It acknowledges the idea that for many, having a child really is their worst nightmare, and that forced parenthood is not something that comes without a greater sacrifice. It's oppressive, and it's seemingly inescapable. Responsibility that traps the characters and makes them unable to leave their own reality. This genre exists to showcase the harmful effects of societal pressures to conform to traditional family values. Domestic horror explores the dangers of forced domesticity and anti-choice agenda by examining the neglectful and resentful nature it encourages by those in the caregiver role. These films portray the child as monstrous because we're experiencing the parents' emotions with them. These children are merely nothing more than the environment they grew up in. Forced birth perpetuates abuse and is dangerous for both the children and parents alike.